Welcome to Invisible, Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction. I'm your host, Dean Anderson, and on today's show, we have Dave Trudel. Dave is the Executive Director of Nimkee NupiGawagan Healing Center, and I'm pretty sure I got that voiced right. Dave, how did I do?
You did. You did a great job with that.
Did I get it?
You did.
Awesome.
You did.
I love doing that stuff, those tongue twisters. It kind of pushes me through. That tongue twister, it has a meaning to it.
It does.
Tell me about the meaning behind that.
So, Nimkee NupiGawagan means Thunderbird's necklace. And in translation, it talks about the rainbows after the rain falls. And it talks about the rainbow. So, the Thunderbird is the highest bird that soars in the sky. And so there's a big teachings around that. It's a few days of teachings around where we established the name from in 95.
Wow. I didn't know. I love that about the Indigenous community, that there's always a bigger, deeper story to be told underneath all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But right off the bat, first I'm going to tell you, from here on in, I'm just going to refer to it as Nimkee.
Sounds great. Sounds great, yeah.
But I would love to hear more about what it is specifically for the people at home that have no idea what we're talking about. Okay. What is Nimkee? What is its purpose? What do you do every day?
Well, Nimkee NupiGawagan was established in 1995. And at that time, there were 7 surrounding First Nation communities that decided that at that time, when there was solvent abuse was a real problem in communities, that they wanted a residential center to support young people and help them in their healing. As we move through the years, we're now a substance abuse and misuse residential treatment center. So we service young people from the ages of 12 to 25. And of course, the specific genders, male and female, and they're each there for 3 months. We can house up to 15 beds at a time.
Wow.
And that means all their own private accommodations, their own bedrooms, and supported with all different kinds of programming throughout the day.
Wow. I have had a small experience dealing with youth in the past, and it's not easy.
No.
For sure. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of layers here with the type of drug and the cultural differences. But first off, what's it like working with youth? I mean, sort of the people at home, 12 to, what did you say, 12 or 15?
12
to 20, 25 is constituted as youth in the social work field. So what's it like working with youth?
One is because we're a national and federal program. Oh, okay. So that means we can service right across Canada young people.
Oh, wow.
Our primary focus is the 7 surrounding communities in southwestern Ontario. And so we look at their needs first, but we accept individuals from Manitoba, Winnipeg. We've had, when there was a crisis in Davis Inlet, so Labrador, the East Coast. So pretty well all areas of Canada, we accept young people. Our focus is on healing. Yeah. And so if we have beds available, we're going to take someone from a different province so that they can get the healing that they need for the 3 months.
And that includes London, Ontario for
that. Of course.
This is why we got you on the show here. Yeah. So working with those youth, there must be lots of challenges that come with working with youth. Can you shed a little light on what that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges when you look at that. So when we have a lot of young people that are coming from isolation, so when you're coming from isolation, I mean, it's a shock, first of all. So it's an environmental shock when you're coming to a city that you've never been to before and you've lived in an isolated community all your life. They're coming with, anger, trauma, addictions, mental health, a lot of concurrent disorders we're finding nowadays with young people.
That's a heavy burden.
Yeah.
I think of most of my friends and myself included who have teenage children, and I think of what a handful that is.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine adding that layer that you just talked about of trauma and isolation and separation and all of that into it. That must be an extremely complex. So what does the team look like that has to sort of support, that sort of complex?
So we do have youth counselors, and they're supported 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And so they're supported, from a day shift, afternoon. We have an education department. So a lot of the programming that we do now is culturally land-based. So we have like a land-based youth counselor. We have an expressive arts therapist that's on staff. We have someone that looks after the language and the culture. We have a cultural coordinator. So it compasses a lot of different aspects of the programming. So anything from doing survival in the bush, tanning hides, fasting, sweat lodge, being actually outside and being in the nature. So when we look about land-based programming, land-based can happen, all year round throughout the summer and winter.
So that's what land-based is. Land-based means that there's that incorporating the land and camping and or living, whatever,
living off the land.
Yeah,
learning to live off the land and learning those skills like flint knapping and building snares and traps and practicing the indigenous culture and indigenous ways, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
I want to do that. Can I?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting, actually.
It would be. It's on my bucket list to get to do an authentic sweat lodge. I'd love to participate in any of those things.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Fantastic.
Yes.
What is the mentality? So we recognize healing, and I can see that from the perspective of people looking in. They go, well, how's camping healing? Like, how is me learning these things healing myself? And I'd love if you could give a little bit.
Well, part of it is about, talk about Mother Earth and being connected to the earth. And they talk about the waters. And so we're ensuring that we're encompassing all those elements that we're using outside. And part of it is getting back to the natural ways of doing things. And so we know that there's all these things like technology and all this stuff where that's not part of our program. And part of our program is getting them to get regrounded, centered, the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional, so that when they go back and leave treatment, that we can provide support and aftercare for them afterwards, and they still can continue with those ceremonies.
Yeah, in the day-to-day work that I do in the addiction field, we use that encompassing biopsychosocial spiritual model of care to look at it. So what I'm hearing you say is this land-based incorporates that, but in turn it has a cultural impact that's being laid on top.
Yeah, a very big cultural component. And we know that, land-based programs have been around for a while. And we're an organization that, we talk about people saying, well, let's have conversations. And that's what we hear. Our organization, I actually started in 95. And I left in 2012, and I ventured off in the addiction field for 10 years. And I was asked to come back in November 2021. And so as of 2021, what we've done is rebuilt a brand new program. So it's not the old Nimkee. We're a brand new organization. The only thing that remains the same is the name and the mission. So our logo and our programming's changed best to suit the young people's needs today, right? So we see a lot of things around gender identity, trauma, concurrent disorders, lots of mental health. So our program's based on how we can support those young people, but it's also individually based, whether it's for education, for therapy, counseling. So everything's geared individually for them.
Yeah, because we talk quite frequently about the idea of addiction being just as unique as the individual, because each individual's addiction was built in its own way, so therefore it has its own healing pattern. So it sounds like you're being very unique to the youth and the individuals and how that's planned.
Yeah, and that's what I say is everybody's unique, right? Each young person that comes there is a unique. We've even changed our terminology in regards to wording. So for years we call people clients, and we don't call people clients anymore because that's an institution word. We call them members because they belong to those communities, so they're members of the communities, or participants. A lot of the young people call staff uncles or aunties or grandma or grandpas. So it's that relationship that we gain with those young people and that support that we provide them throughout treatment. We are a big action organization. We're not just sayers, and we don't sit and have conversations for hours and hours and hours. We're doers. We want to excel in treatment for young people and healing, and the different models that we're going to be using, coming up in the next few years.
Yeah, so I see where there's going to be pressure from the external community as well to follow suit of what treatment planning is outside of, because the community has an idea of what a treatment looks like, and then you obviously culturally have land-based is a different idea of treatment. So you must have to integrate a lot of those things, or at least make some attempts to integrate.
Oh, we have to integrate everything, right? And we also have to look at integrating, where's that young person coming from? So if it's an Inuit kid, right, or an Innu kid, or an OG Cree, or a Lenape, everybody has similarities, a lot of similarities for the culture, but we have to make sure that when they're going back home or they're practicing their culture, that they're practicing that culture that they believe in and that they know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So off topic completely. What does OG stand for in the Cree?
OG Cree. I'm not sure.
Not sure.
It's a type of dialect of Cree.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's Moose Factory Cree, there's Swampy Cree, OG Cree.
So much to know. I could talk to you all day about this.
Different languages.
My brain went to the OG.
Just OG. Yeah, not that. Yeah.
I can see what that would be.
Yeah.
So the youth, and kind of a heavier question. You said something about solvents, which I don't really know if the audience knows what solvents are. So if you could touch on that. But in addition, what are getting these kids, what are the drug of choice? What are the things that are happening that are, now that you've stepped out of, I'm assuming you still do solvents, but there's other things happening. What is it that's bringing these youth into the facility to start with?
Yeah. Well, I think solvent abuse, first of all, is chemicals. So, they talk about glue, naphtha, gas, propane, contact cement, those types of things. And it's a basic way of your inhaling. So when you're inhaling, one of the quickest ways to get high is inhaling. It gets to your brain quicker. So, but it's very, very detrimental to your body. It causes lots of brain damage. We've worked with a lot of young people that have had brain damage due to severe use of solvents. What we're seeing now today is, of course, the opiates, a lot of smoking the weed, still alcohol. Still alcohol's prevalent in a lot of the young people that we see. But it's a mix of everything. But our program is based, anybody that's 12 or over that comes in the program, it's a volunteer base. So part of our process is what we do is we set up Zoom meetings for young people that are living far away and talking to them and giving them the visual of the program before they even get there. So it's almost like getting to know each other, right? So not just bringing a kid to a treatment center, doesn't know where he is not familiar. We're doing introductions. We're talking about programming. We're talking about individual needs. We're talking about what is it they want, education-wise, cultural-wise. And so each treatment plan is formed to what that young person wants.
Yeah, I truly recognize that no one is going to want to be able to heal if they can't feel connected with where they're healing, if they can't feel a rapport or a sense of security and safety. So the value of that must be extremely important.
It is. It is very important for sure.
And when it comes back to the substance use side of things, are you seeing anything specifically trending or something that's, that you didn't think that, all the years that you've been doing this, are there been any surprises in how things have trended or changed over the years?
I think, that's why when we changed the program in 2021, we looked at substance abuse and misuse. And so when we talk about the misuse, if someone's even dabbling in that stuff, right, we know that someone might be starting with something like weed, and as they move along, they're getting into the stronger things like cocaine, opiates, and things like that. I could see, not the trend, but I could see that there's still a lot of misuse of drugs. So if we can even get those young people that are in there that are socializing, trying weed and drinking, and support them and talk to them about addictions and mental health. And, we see a lot of kids that are having, young people that are having psychosis now because the drugs they're using, or it's being laced with, the weed's being laced with, fentanyl, carfentanil, things like that, and the dangers. We're not an organization that, tells young people not what to do, but what information can we give you to help you make the best decisions that you can, and how can we support you in the long run?
And so it should be. So many complications, so many variables there.
Oh, for sure.
So much danger in the day-to-day use and the way that things are escalating with drug use. But we're going to take a quick break, Dave, and we'll be right back. And there's so many more questions I have for you. And we'll be right back after this break with Invisible Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction. Welcome back to Invisible Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction, where we have Dave Trudel from Nimkee NupiGawagan.
Correct.
Yeah, I did it twice.
Nice.
I'm killing it. Treat Healing Center. Correct. Thanks again for being here, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
I want to. We had some heavy conversation when it comes to talking about youth and substance use, and kind of those things that go along with it. And I think anybody that understands addiction recognizes that trauma usually plays a pretty big role in that, whether we see it or not. That it has a part in that.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to talk a little bit about what that means. And I'm going to give you a two-parter.
Okay.
And the two-parter is within the Indigenous community, we strongly recognize intergenerational trauma.
Correct.
And so I would love for you to talk about that and just, what that means to the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things when we talk about intergenerational trauma, we know that a lot of the young people that we have coming there have suffered a lot of trauma. And so when you bring them into a residential treatment center, one of the things that we had to do is to help with the trauma is we had to make the environment inviting. So we've changed the whole dynamics. So it doesn't look like an institution where you're walking into a place and, that's going to cause additional trauma, right? We talk about residential school and we have that school setting. Our school setting, our classroom setting is not like that. So we don't call it school, we call it the learning nest. So even from the onset, we've changed the wording because we know we got a lot of young people that are coming with lots of trauma. Whatever their trauma looks like is we're going to be able to help them as much as we can while they're there with their trauma.
So that the space of safety, for those that don't get it, I can't heal from trauma if I'm in fight or flight, so I have to be in a safety space to be able to hear from that.
Correct.
So you recognize that and make that a priority within Nimkee.
Yeah. And that is a priority for us, that safe space, right? Their own space, right? And being able to express whatever their needs or wants are, right? And to be openly talk about this. And we work with different people, resident social workers that we have. We have a global traditional healer. We do a lot of sweat lodges, a lot of cultural things, and programming to help deal with the trauma.
Yeah, that level of connection must be...
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you, as if I had never ever heard of what intergenerational trauma is, and I don't know what it is, can you explain it to me in the most layman's of terms so that the people at home could understand?
Well, I think it's carried on for years.
Yeah.
And, whether someone's coming from an abusive a family years ago, we talk about some of those things they actually carry on throughout the years. And that trauma is almost brought on to the next generation, to the next generation, the next generation. And that's pretty well the simplest way I would say to how to explain that. And so we're trying to break that intergenerational trauma and, how can we stop that, right? So that's not continuing.
Yeah. So when we see somebody that has poor coping skills or mental health as a result of trauma, they end up using that trauma as a tool towards their children, and then their children end up getting trauma from the fact that mom had trauma and so on and so forth.
Correct.
And of course, in the Indigenous society, colonization in residential schools would have a big part in creating that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
So safety is important, but are there any other things specifically designed towards that you would implement within the healing center?
I'm trying to think. I think when we look at the models, everything's based on the individual before they come in.
Okay.
And so really is looking at their needs. We can be a program where we develop everything, but we're inclusive. So when we have those young people there, we're asking them, what is it that you need? What is it you want? How can we help you? So we're not an organization that are going to say, okay, this is what you're doing, this is da-da-da-da. I mean, we do have structure and routine for sure, which is needed. We know that it's needed for young people. Good structure and routine, good hygiene, good meal preparation, food, those types of things. But basically, it's individualized about what is it that we need, need to help you be successful in your journey.
Nice.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. The trauma being such a integral part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Is there anything that really stands out that you would recognize within the youth if they have trauma? Is there there's a little red light that flashes above their head to say I've got, right? So it's not what are the telltale signs?
Yeah. Well, part of it is our intake process too. So when we are doing our intake process, it's pretty thorough. It's about 40 pages long, actually.
Wow.
So it gets pretty in depth about, what kind of things they're looking at. And it talks about trauma. And we use different assessment tools. We use a compass assessment. It's kind of based on the medicine wheel to gear up where are they looking at. And that's done pre and post. So we do a lot of measures too. and we look at success, right? And if we're not being successful in that area, how can we be successful in that area? So a lot of it's the young people that are guiding us to identify what someone's going through trauma. Some of it's through behaviors, believe it or not. You know, a lot right? And a lot of them are dealing with, you know, huge baggage. We got young people that have lived on the streets. We've got a lot of people that are really active in addiction because of all the trauma, right? Or the sexual abuse, or those things. We're a little piece of the puzzle for the young people in their journey. And like I had mentioned before, is we're an action organization. So some of the things that we're going to be doing in the future, we want to encompass the whole person. We want to look at pre, we want to look at treatment, we want to look at post. And that's what we want to look at. So we're in the middle, we're treatment. We're offering residential treatment or in healing for young people. But we're going to encompass the whole circle and making sure that those young people are supported for a while. So not just, you know, I know about treatment. I'm sure you know about treatment centers that they're, whether, you know, 28 days, 30 days, 3 months, is that you're there and individuals are, you know, put back to that same place where they belong or where they were before they came there without having some of those supports or thinking those supports are there, but they're really not. So what can we do to help young people be successful? And I know, like, I look at different models. So we've been doing a lot of research on different models worldwide, what works best for young people. And we're indigenizing them. That's what we're doing to help the young people.
Okay, that's great. All-encompassing, full line of care from start to finish. That's
Correct. That's
really what it's all about.
Correct.
In the years I've been doing this, it's like, if I don't have a pre-post and a treatment plan, then I'm going to fail along the way somewhere.
Correct.
So that's good for you for doing that. I want to switch gears. Before I do that, I want to tell the audience to look up what a medicine wheel is, because it's probably one of the coolest things. And just to note that medicine wheel, the concept of it is we're used in current day medicine when we look at the biopsychosocial spiritual model.
Correct.
It's all involved there, but this has been around for way longer, and it's a pretty cool thing. So I'll get off that topic. But what I would like to ask you about is, why, Dave? Why all these years? Why all this work? Why, you know, what's because obviously there got to be a little bit of passion to do this for as long as you did, and working with the youth is not easy. So there's more to it. Would you mind sharing?
Been passionate. You know, I come from addictions background and mental health, addiction issues when I was younger myself, and I chose to quit drinking and using drugs probably around the age of 25.
Okay.
And at that time, I thought, well, you know what, I want to start helping people, whatever that success looks like. And I'm the type of individual. I'm a doer, and I'm an action oriented person. And I'm one of those individuals that when someone tells you you can't do it, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so that's why I actually chose to come back to Nimkee in 2021 to rebuild, and, you know, continue to develop better programming for young people. It's just been my passion to work with young people. I'm a sociable person. I like talking to people. You know, the capacity I'm at now, it's a little bit different. I'm not doing frontline work like I did years ago. But I enjoy the work, and I enjoy working with young people. And whether it's one success or two success, for the last 30 years that I've been doing this, I look at success and how is that measured? You know, someone, for example, just doing their ADLs and having a shower that day, who suffers from depression and anxiety, that's huge success, right? Very strength-based, and we focus on individual strengths. And I've got a great team where I'm at, and very well organized. You know, we flow like a well-oiled machine, and we're like a big family. And the things that we're going to do, and the individuals that we hire are people that care about people. They're there because they care about people, not for a job, right? They're there, they stay that extra time to help out. To be part of those ceremonies and be part of their culture and be part of their own healing. Because we know that in this field, it's a tough field. And you have to have your own healing and doing your own healing, right, to work with these young people. These young people are challenging. They come with lots, A to Z, with behaviors and challenges.
For sure. So what I heard you say there, to wrap it up and as fast as I can, would be that it's not a vocation, it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a purpose.
It's a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything at 25 years old that was the turning point for you? Because I know there's a lot of youth, they're not watching this show, but maybe it'll find their way into them. But there's a lot of youth out there that struggle with the idea of making changes at that young of an age.
Yeah.
Was there something for you that stood out that made you want to make that change at 25?
I think I was really active in addiction, and you know, the environments or the places I was living weren't healthy. You know, living with people who were shooting heroin and we're doing cocaine and drinking and all those things that were going on, and my life was chaos. It wasn't manageable. You know, and you know, I had to really look at, you know, what is it that I need, what is it that I want, and we talk about trauma because I was raised with all that trauma. I was raised to, you know, drinking at a young age. I remember going to my uncle's bars when I was 10 years old, you know, up north, right? So that was a normal thing. But as I got a little bit older and more mature, I realized this is not normal, the way I'm behaving. Waking up in ditches, right? Waking up in different cities, right? There's a problem here, so let's look at that. So that's what I did. And from then, moving forward, it's been a great journey, and my own healing journey, and especially helping young people.
Yeah, so I can see where that transfers over into that. If you were to give old you some advice, if you could go back and have 25-year-old you sitting next to you, what would it be?
Honestly, I don't think I know if I would change that, because those were all lessons to me.
Yeah.
And whether some were hard or not, they were lessons, and they were teachable moments.
Yeah.
And they helped me to be the person I am today.
Nice.
And so that's what I really appreciate. So I don't think I would change anything. You know, do I regret some of the things I did? For sure. Right? I can't change those.
Yeah.
Right? But how can I use that and be more successful in my life today?
Yeah. So I asked myself that same question the other day, and I frequently say, if I could. And the same thing came up. It was like, no, you know what? These things shaped me and made me who I am, and they're really important.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked that question is because I wanted to direct it to the people at home to watch, to say, you know, if you're struggling right now, it's okay. And you know what? These things are all learning and they're all growing, and they're going to help us grow and evolve. So with those words of wisdom, we're going to end the show today, David. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate
it. Thank you for having me.
Being on the show. And I'm going to be bugging you about hooking me up with a sweat lodge.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Thanks again, Dave. Thank you for watching Invisible, Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction. We'll see you next time.